Good afternoon, guys. How's it going? Welcome back to the channel. It's so awesome to have you guys here once again. If you watched my last video, I said at the beginning, and I think a little bit towards the end there, that I was going to upload this video talking about all the parts that we have for the K24 build and how I'm going to create a 1,000 horsepower RSX. So, with that being said, I'm going to try to just run through these real quick, try not to babble on as I do. So we're going to start, I don't have everything here. That's kind of why I was a little bit hesitant to make this video in general, but some parts are at the machine shop, as they need to be. So I'm just going to run through what we have here, and then I'm going to tell you guys all the other things that we have that's at the machine shop that you may already know about, but we're going to run through them anywho. So these are my Manly rods that I ordered for the build, and these bad boys are just, I literally told the guy at the machine shop that I have had these saved in my web browser for like the past 4 years. Like, I have always wanted these rods in particular, but they're the Manly Turbo Tough I-beam connecting rods. They make a rod that is exactly like this, but it's an H-beam. And basically, the difference is that if you have an H-beam rod, the centerpiece is hollow, and an I-beam rod, they're completely closed. So it's a much stronger rod. So if you're ever curious on which rod is the strongest, usually I-beams. I'm not gonna claim to know, a whole heck of a lot about this kind of stuff. I have built engines in the past, but normally to just OEM specifications with factory rods and pistons and things like that. But as far as I know, I-beam rods are the strongest, and they are definitely what you want to use if you're going to be turboing something. So this is one of them. Let's see if I can get a little bit closer to you guys here. So it's a pretty sweet looking rod. I mean, as far as the way it looks, you're never going to see it after it's inside the block, but these are forged rods, and that's kind of what you want to look for as well. Every single thing that's inside the engine block, the entire rotating assembly is forged. The crankshaft is forged, the rods are forged, pistons are forged, and we got some pretty sweet bearings going with it too. But anywho, if you can see on the bottom here, right there, you might be able to see there's some writing. I'm just checking the camera here to make sure I'm getting that in frame, and on the top there. So I have already actually taken these to the machine shop, and they have been balanced. So balancing is something that you definitely want to do if you're going to be going for high horsepower. Usually naturally aspirated stuff doesn't make that big of a difference, but especially with it being just a 4-cylinder, and you can do it to a straight 6 or a V8 or whatever, but especially with it being just a 4-cylinder, and I say just a 4-cylinder, very lightly there. What I mean by that is that there are just 4, cylinders. It's just 4 pistons instead of it being more or less. You can still make extremely high horsepower, but I'm just saying the balancing and the harmonics of a 4-cylinder can get a little wonky from what I've been told. So balancing a 4-cylinder is extremely important if you're going to be making high horsepower or planning to make high horsepower. Let's see, the part numbers. This is for, I'm putting the K20 head that's in the RSX, the K20Z1 head, on the K24A2 block. The block is out of a 2007 Acura TSX, and I know that because the VIN number is still on the block. So I looked it up, and it's an 07 TSX, and it's the A2, and that's usually what you want to go for if you're going to be doing this. Some people go with A1s out of like CRVs and stuff, but the A2 is like the most desirable block, so I'm pretty lucky in that aspect. But the part number for these rods to work for the K24A2 is 14405, 14405. So there's the information on that. Let me get a little bit closer because it's not showing up at all. And it says that it's got the work order number on there and the date that these were made, I suppose, was August 18th, 2020, or maybe that's just the day that they were shipped out, because that was literally a month ago. So, at the machine shop, the guy that weighed them said that they normally don't have to do much to the Manly rods, because that's normally what they go with, is Manly stuff. There's a lot of, stuff that Manly makes, like pistons and things like that, but when I was in there, I saw a whole lot of Manly rod boxes just laying around. So he said that, they will grind on aftermarket rods, but it's usually just not necessary, because Manly does a really, really good job of taking care of the balancing in-house, but they still check them just to be safe. You never know. You never know what could happen. So yeah, 14405-4, 4 rods, Turbo Tough, I-beam. It even says CRV 2.4 liter VTEC, and the length is 5.984. So yeah, that's it. So we're going with these rods, and these are, I would say that in the K series, the rods are definitely, your Achilles heel. That's the first thing I would upgrade if you're going to upgrade anything. And definitely spend the money. Like, I can't tell you guys how many times that I've said this myself, but also heard from other people say, buy once, cry once. And basically just saying, like, buy the good stuff first, and then you won't ever have to worry about it again. And that's why it's taken me 4 years to get all these parts, in here, and the parts that I want to have. I'm going for as much of a bulletproof build as I can. And with that being said, you guys have not seen this yet. Spider! Sorry, spider. So this, you guys probably already know. And no, I am not going to open this thing. I'm just going to leave it in the packaging, because it's been living in my garage and it's dusty out there. But this here, and I do apologize for the glare, this is not going to look good, but this is a 4-piston racing RSX-Type S ported oil pump that has been modified to fit on a K24 block. And so the reason for this, the reason that you want to get a Type S oil pump or an S2000 oil pump, I think either one will be fine, honestly. I just wanted the extra insurance. That's why I went with this. And it's a good value for the money, I think. Like, S2000 oil pump is going to run you anywhere between like $350 and $400, or no, $350 to $500, depending on whether you get one out of a junkyard or used, which is the same thing, but you know what I mean. Or a new one from Honda, which I would definitely go with a new one, honestly, if you're going to do a build this serious. But this Type S oil pump from 4-Piston Racing is about $350 to $400, I think, depending on like shipping costs and things like that. And they claim that this thing only cavitates past like 11,000 RPMs, and that they have seen better performance out of this ported Type S pump than out of S2000 pumps. I'm not gonna say that I wholeheartedly believe in 4-Piston Racing, because I have not worked with that company very much. This is the only thing that I've ever purchased from them. But their reputation kind of precedes them. So I'm going to work with them a little bit more in the future. And when I say work with them, I mean I'm going to purchase some more things from them in the future. They don't know me from Adam. I have talked to them a little bit on Instagram and things like that. So go check them out if you're curious about a few things. But they have built some pretty insane K series and B series and F series Honda motors, and they even do like 4G63 stuff and a few other engines here and there. But there seems to be pretty good, claims for this particular pump. Plus, it's a Type S pump, and that's what a lot of people go with too. So, and it's already been shaved, because you have to shave a little bit of the housing off to make it bolt to the K24 block. So, I think it's going to be great. And I'm going to run a oil pressure gauge, spoiler for a future video there. But I'm going to run an oil pressure gauge and, just keep my eyes on this thing and just test it out, see how it goes, learn for myself, build my own trust. I had the same claims for hybrid racing. Like I was kind of a die-hard, like K-tuned guy, and then I kind of started looking at hybrid racing stuff, and I'm like, you can't judge a book by its cover, because I literally didn't like hybrid racing from the get-go because I didn't like the color green. And that sounds really childish and stupid, but this is also me from like 6 or 7 years ago, when I was younger and, maybe a little bit stupider, who knows. But I didn't like the color green, and so I was just like, hybrid racing. And literally the first thing I thought was, like, are they like, boosting Priuses over there? Like, what the hell are they doing? I was sadly mistaken. They make some really good parts. Like, there is not much that I wouldn't buy from hybrid racing. Not trying to sell anything for them or brown nose them or kiss their ass anymore, but than I already am. But I've had good experiences with their products. So we'll see how 4-piston racing. I think that they will suit my fancy pretty well. So 4-piston racing, ported Type S oil pump. Definitely, a good thing to have, because the K24 oil pump sucks ass. Just putting it bluntly, it's not good for revving high. And most people say that, that the K24, even if you do build it and put a Type S head on it, that it still won't do much. It won't gain more, much horsepower past like 72, 7,400 RPM. But I think that is because it is lacking in that area as far as like oil pressure is concerned, and the valve train, and a few other things here and there. I think it's a mechanical limitation, not necessarily like, well, I really don't know what any other limitations it would be. But if you're just going to run a K24A2 and just swap it into like a Civic or something, you're not going to have to rev it that high, and it's going to be a much faster car than with a B series or a D series. So it's a good upgrade no matter what. But I think with the combination of a Type S head with a few small upgrades here and there to the head itself, and all the things that we're going to be doing to the block, I think I will be able to rev it to like 8,500, 9,000, maybe even 10,000 RPMs in the future, and see significant gains, while the motor is engine. It's an engine. While the engine is naturally aspirated, I think we're going to see some pretty awesome gains. So, anywho, enough babbling on. Next thing we're going to look at here are bearings. Nothing crazy special about these bearings. I was told a long time ago, and through the forums and reading and everything, that the best thing that you can do for a K series is put as much Honda back into it as possible if you're building it. And so for the longest time, I told myself I'm gonna buy Honda bearings for this thing. I did not. I bought ACL performance bearings, and for both the mains and the rods, and I also got ACL thrust washers. Got to have those. Maybe not necessarily have to have these. The ones that are still in there, if they're still in there, are probably fine. I really don't see why the thrust bearings would, go bad after any amount of time at all. But what do I know? So I was told to get ACL bearings by the machine shop, and I trust the machine shop and the guys up there. I've trusted them with the block, and I'll tell you guys about what they've done to the block so far, and everything looks phenomenal. I'll put up some pictures when we get to that point. But everything looks great, and so when I asked the main dude up there that runs the place, John, if you're watching, thank you for everything. But he said, get ACL or Clevite bearings, and I was just like, okay. No, I'm not going to argue with him, not going to, ask why. I've already done all my asking for the most part. Like, I have built trust with this guy over many, many, many months, even over a year, actually. Yeah, I've been talking to him about this build. And so he's answered every question I've thrown at him, and he never gets frustrated. He's just a knowledgeable guy. And it's crazy the amount of stuff he has to keep up with. Like, you guys will see in the very next video, the shop, and how, like, it looks like utter freaking chaos, but he knows where everything is. It's insane. So anyway, he told me to get these ACL bearings. Here's the part number for them. This is for the mains. We went plus 25 over So that's just what he told me to do, because he had to turn the crankshaft, because he informed me that when they measured the crankshaft, it was a little out of whack. And so they had to, he grinded the main journals down 0.25 of a millimeter, I guess, you know, or 0.25 thousandths of an inch. I don't know. But these are what he told me to get. I showed these to him and he said, perfect. Part number looks good. And they needed to be oversized bearings. So here we are. This is the part number for the rod bearings. Get that a little bit closer. Yeah, part number for the rod bearings. I actually ordered the wrong one, so you guys saw that it was 4B1972H- standard, STD, standard. I actually ordered the first time some HXs. The HXs are like super high performance bearings, and they have a minus 0.001 extra, you know, thou of clearance. And that is to get a little bit more oil into the area where the rod and the bearing meet. I'm not going to pretend like I understand why you would want more oil in that area. If you're making more horsepower, wouldn't you want the clearances to be even tighter, so that way there's less chance of it? I really don't know. I couldn't tell you. I'm not a machine shop guy, but he said that he wanted the standard bearings for the rods, and the clearance on that would be perfect. I guess if you had to just take just the smallest hair of material off of the rod journals, just to make sure that they're perfectly cleaned up, no little hairline scratches or anything like that, I guess you would go for those bearings or something along those lines. Don't take my word for it. This is what I was told to get. He checked it. It's good. So I'll show you guys these real quick. Still perfectly in the packaging. You know, all 8 of them are there. Good to go. So nothing crazy to really look at there. So those are the bearings that we're going with. And this right here is kind of a special case. Like, I'm really excited to show you guys this. So we've got some ARP washers, some ARP nuts, and some ARP studs. So, with that being said, you may be thinking to yourself, well, those sure do look like some really short head studs. That's because they're not. I totally forgot to grab them. Just take my word for it. I have ARP head studs for a K-Series. I think if you actually go back and look at some of my very first K24 videos, that you can actually see the head stud sticking out of the block. So you guys saw in the last couple of videos where getting the K24 from Jason. I've actually had the K24 for a little while. It's through the magic of video editing. That's just how it works out sometimes. So here she is, and hopefully I'm going to get to do a good bit of work to her today. I do have them, and they're out in the garage. I totally forgot to grab them, but these are, you know, all the new parts that I have. I've had those studs since the day I got the block. They were already in there. So these studs, you know, super short. This was actually a custom order. These studs, the washers and nuts, they're totally ARP, and they came with some assembly lube and everything. And I will put a link in the description for where I bought these. These are main girdle studs, because the K24 comes with torque to yield bolts for the girdle, and I've never really been able to get a straight answer from anyone, other than the fact that, you know, buy new bolts. If you have bolts that are torque to yield, buy new ones. And if you know, I've looked for many videos on building K-Series engines, just to really wrap my head around what I need to do and get done and buy and all this stuff. And on a lot of the videos where people are building these really high horse K-Series engines, they're using bolts, just the factory Honda bolts that comes, you know, that comes with that girdle, and they'll put new ones in there, torque them down, good to go. But my thing is that, you know, that's great, but if I ever need to tear this thing down again for whatever reason, I'll never have to replace these again. And the clamping force of these studs is going to outshine those torque to yield bolts all day long. And I even told John that I got these, and he said, well, you're just further bulletproofing this block. I mean, you're really, he said, for someone that claims to not know what they're doing, you're doing a lot of the right moves. That made me feel pretty good. And I don't claim to know what I'm doing. I just do a lot. I make myself sick for the amount of research that I do. Like, I literally just rack my brain constantly trying to make sure that I'm doing all the right things. And that's why I question everything. I'm just like, are you sure? Is this the right thing to do? Blah, blah, blah. And so I'm hoping by the time that this is all said and done, I will have a perfect guide on how to build a 1,000 horsepower K-Series engine for you guys. So super stoked about these. These are a custom order, link in the description. Great guy out of Texas, you know. So I'm not 100% sure, but I think these studs are out of like a Volkswagen something, because, you know, these threads and everything, like, I mean, just because this is a custom order, pretty sure these are the exact same nuts that are on the head studs for the K-Series. These washers are damn near universal for ARP, so it's really just the length and the thread pitch of these studs, but this is a custom order. You can't just look up K24 or K20 or K-Series main girdle studs. So I had to do a lot of research to find these in America. So pretty cool. So I've got my hands on these, and apparently it's just extra added insurance. So it's just going to have a little bit more clamping force, or probably a lot more clamping force on the lower end. But even so, like, I mean, there are so many, you know, forum posts of guys that have, you know, that have totally stock Honda blocks that are making like 600 to 800 horse. And, you know, I just don't feel like I would have that much luck. But, I mean, you know, believe what you want, but apparently they are out there. So, I mean, you can build a pretty strong engine block without really doing that much. I mean, I know guys that just upgrade to head studs and torque them down to whatever spec ARP has, and then they boost them and they're making, you know, like I said, 600, 700, 800 horse. Now, how long that's going to last, who's to say? It's random. I feel like it's literally totally random. I feel like if you have really clean oil and do regular oil changes and make sure that, you know, if you get like one piece of dirt or like one clump of old oil and it clogs an oil gallery in the crankshaft, that's it for you. I mean, I think it has a lot to do with how well you can maintain the build. But, you know, with that being said, you know, I'm going to extremes to make sure that this thing is going to be perfect the first time, because it's a big investment and I don't want this thing to mess up on me. But I've also been told that if it doesn't mess up, you're not making enough horsepower. So there's that. I mean, take all this stuff with a grain of salt. This is just what I'm doing. So if it works for me, it'll probably work for you too. So the parts that I don't have on the counter here is the block itself. You guys have seen the block, and here's some pictures here of the Darton sleeves, Darton wet sleeves that I got pressed into the block. They did a fantastic job. They also decked the head after they pressed the sleeves in, and John said everything went super well. Everything's perfectly flat, no issues whatsoever. He said it was easy, and that's definitely a word you want to hear from your machinist, is that the work that they had to do for you was easy work. So anywho, I think it was just a stock K24A2 block that got pulled from probably a wrecked TSX, and then he threw the head studs in there and then boosted it, and then broken ring lands, because that's a weak link of these Honda engines, unfortunately. And that's why I'm going with everything forged. So with that being said, he pressed in the sleeves, tore the old sleeves out, pressed the Dartons in, decked the head, and then he had to bore the sleeves out to my piston specifications. I bought Wiseco 87.5 millimeter K24, K20 pistons. So they're forged pistons. They are super freaking cool. I honestly can't recall if I've showed them on the channel or not before. I think I might have, but I can't remember. I know I showed them when I took them to the machine shop the first time, and that video was just awful. I apologize for that video, but you know, reasons I couldn't film. So they are a 10.2 to 1 compression ratio, and the reason that I went with a 10.2 to 1 is because the factory compression ratio of the K24 is 10.5 to 1, but the RSX with the K20A2 and the K20Z1, I think it's 11.1 to 1. So it's a little bit higher, and you're going to make a little bit more horsepower based on, you know, a higher compression ratio. But the reason I went with a lower compression ratio is because I'm not planning on I wasn't planning on running E85, and so you know, the advice that was given to me was to run a lower compression ratio, and you can run higher boost and your engine will be safer with pump gas, which is 100% true. But now I'm thinking I'm probably gonna run E85, spoiler alert. So, you know, I've been kind of getting things ready for that transition. And there's a gas station right down the road from me that has E85 at a pump. I just got to go and see, you know, the actual mixture of it. I'm not sure how much I trust it, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm gonna run a flex fuel sensor, and you know, we're doing big things. We're doing big things with the RSX. And if it turns out that I can run E85 on the regular, you know, might be a little bit bittersweet, but I'll probably just rip the block apart again, and I'm gonna run some higher compression ratio pistons if it's gonna help with horsepower. If I'm making good numbers with a 10.2 to 1 compression ratio, I mean, I'll probably just stick with them. But if I'm gonna run E85 and I can bump the compression up to like a 12 something, maybe even like, you know, a little bit higher. I know they make 14.1 to 1 compression ratio pistons. I think those are mainly for like pretty serious NA builds, but who knows? Who knows where we're gonna go from here? But for right now, I just know that the 10.2 to 1 Wiseco forged pistons are going to be a safe, reliable compression ratio piston for the block. Still going to be running 93 octane. That's what we have here, and it's going to be safe, and that's the whole point. And so, you know, that's pretty much it. That's everything, I'm pretty sure. I've got a few more things I've got to pick up. I've got a timing cover, but I don't have any bolts. I kind of don't want to tear the K20Z1 completely apart, so I'm gonna, you know, be picking up some timing cover bolts and a few things here and there from a junkyard, and I may film that if I can. But yeah, that's pretty much it, you guys. So you know, I'll update you as time goes on, and hopefully we'll have the engine block back in the SnowDrift garage in, you know, a week or so. So we have to take the main girdle studs up to the machine shop, so that way they can torque the girdle down and check the journal clearances one more time, because he didn't know that I was going to order those, and so they're just going to check everything, you know, re-mic everything, measure everything, make sure everything's going to be, you know, good to go. And then, you know, I'm going to be able to bring everything home, and then I'll probably go ahead and build the bottom end. I don't know if I'll film it or not. I might just live stream it or something, but I kind of want to do like a full feature length film of getting this thing built from head to toe and then putting it in the RSX. But once the bottom end is done and we've got it back home and I've got everything taken care of as far as that's concerned, that I'm going to start ordering parts for the head. And I've got a few things that I'm going to have to get for the head, and I want to make sure that I have every single part that I need for the head before I take it off. I'm going to get every single thing at the house, and then we're going to be pulling the head off of the RSX, and then I'm going to be taking it to the machine shop to have it decked and have a bunch of work done to it to make sure that it's perfect. It's going to mate up really nice to the block. And so I'm trying to have as little downtime on the RSX as possible, because it's still a running, driving car, and I like being able to move it if I'm going to be cutting grass and doing, you know, things like that. So that's the plan. That's the plan. You guys know everything now. You guys know every single thing that I know. And so, you know, and once, you know, the K20 Frankenstein engine is built and in the RSX and running and everything, we're gonna go get it dynoed and tune it with K-Pro. And so we've already got K-Pro, so you know that was one big step in this big long process. And so get it dyno tuned, get a good you know powerful tune on it. We'll see what kind of numbers we put down. As far as numbers are concerned, I'm shooting for 300. Like that may be completely, that may be super high. That might be kind of low. Who knows? I don't ask me. I'm just gonna shoot for 300 horsepower because right now, you know, the car is putting 200 to the tire. So I figured, you know, 300 to the tire on an NA build with, you know, a little bit more torque with the K24 capabilities, and the fact that we're going to be able to rev it to the moon with that oil pump, supposedly, should be able to. I don't see why not. Maybe more like 280 or something like that. We'll see. Maybe y'all need to port the RBC out, get a bigger throttle body to help it out. Who knows? We're going to figure this all out together. So I think that's going to be it for this video, you guys. I can't think of anything else. God knows I'm forgetting something. But I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you are just as excited about talking about this kind of stuff and working on cars as I am. Gonna be, you know, hopefully going on a ride pretty soon. You know, CBR hasn't gone anywhere. It's still sitting out there. I have gone on a ride, you know, recently. So didn't film though, just went for in my own enjoyment. And so, yeah, I might be doing a few motovlogs here and there a little bit. I'm actually kind of excited for the cooler weather to move in. It's going to be getting, I think it's already fall. If it's not, it's going to be here pretty soon. So anywho, I hope you all are doing well. Hope you're enjoying the content, you know, hit the bell notification, stay up to date with all my upcoming videos. Hit subscribe, consider doing that if you haven't already, if you're enjoying this stuff. And remember to eat your vegetables. Share the video with your friends, your family, and your dog. And have a good freaking day.